Yo, what's up everybody, it's Victon here with my first in-game build guide of 3.19, Lakes of Calandra, the Summon Raging Spirits Necromancer. And I can finally feel comfortable saying it that after 1 week of testing several minion builds, I do think this is the best overall minion skill in 3.19. It actually has very similar playstyle to the old Skeleton Mages build, where you can cast a few times and then run around in circles while your minions do all the work and let you dodge things. It makes for a really smooth gaming experience. Defense is great with this build, with near capped block and spell block and a decent amount of armor. You won't be dying much unless you're doing maybe like the Uber bosses. And speaking of bosses, it's actually a great mapper when you sock it in melee splash, but also a super solid boss killer as well. With just over 7 million DPS in this version, you can comfortably kill all the in-game bosses and do juiced up invitations as well. It's not enough to comfortably kill the Uber bosses just yet. You're going to have to wait for the min-maxed build guide for that one, as we will have to spend a little bit more currency to hit the 15 million DPS we need to comfortably do those fights. And talking about currency, I spent a total of 14 divines on this setup. I have fully completed my atlas and all of my favorite maps unlocked, so it's safe to say that you can easily do all the content with this build and effectively beat the in-game, and do it comfortably as well, since you have the easy to play playstyle of minions doing all the work for you. In this guide, I'm going to be going over the skill tree as well as how to level this build, the gem links, the gear, and of course the trade links that you're going to need to complete your character. But before we get into the guide, if you do end up enjoying it and it helps you out in some way, it would mean a lot if you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave some comments below. It goes a long way and I would love you forever and ever. Also, if you want to take your support to the next level, I do have a Patreon that gets you access to my community Discord, where I actually do tons of personal build reviews every day, and I'm there to answer all your questions all the time. We also have a pretty active community in there as well, with lots of folks happy to help everybody out. So with all that said, let's go ahead and hop into the build guide. Alright, and here we are in the path of building, and I actually have quite a few things in the path of building for you guys to utilize. So first thing that I'm going to do is actually kind of just walk you guys through the path of building to show you all the different things that I have for you guys. So as I always do, if you go down here to the bottom left, you click this little thing that says final. You can go through all of your leveling up paths to this build, starting from level 1 all the way up and through the campaign. You can of course see your Ascendancy Points as you level up as well, all the way up to the final tree I have here, which ends at level 95 for this particular build that I have right here. So that is the skill tree itself. Let's go over to the skills. Now I have two sets of skills here. I have your final skill set, and I also have a leveling one as well. It's actually super simple. It's literally just 3 different things here, and I'll explain why it's so simple here in a second. That'll be the first thing that we do. And same thing for your items. We have a main build item set, and we also have the leveling item set. So the first thing that we're going to do in this guide here is talk about the leveling part of it, because of course you're gonna have to level this build up. And good thing to note here is that it's actually the easiest build to level up in the freaking world, because it's super strong. I actually think it's better than doing the whole one with nothing. If you've ever done that leveling up, which is super fast, super strong, I think this is potentially equal, or if not even better, doing this new setup that they have. They've released a couple new uniques, or not uniques, they've kind of re-released them and upgraded them a little bit, and it's really strong now. I actually released a video a few days ago talking about the Twink leveling guide for all necromancers. Good thing for us, it is actually the same skill. It's Summon Raging Spirits, so we kind of got lucky with that it's our actual in-game skill, and it is also the best skill to level up with using this setup right here. So let's talk about this setup, and then we'll go into the actual build itself. So for the weapons that we're going to be using, and by the way guys, I will have trade links for all of these, for both the leveling set and for the in-game set. We'll talk about that near the end of the video, but I will have trade links for all of that for you guys. If you want to check the description of this video, it will be in there. So our weapons, we're going to be using 2 of these. We're going to be using +1 level all fire skill gems. These are super cheap. You can use them at literally level 1, and they're literally 1 chaos each. So really nice. The Crown of Thorns is going to be our helmet, and the reason we're doing that instead of like a The gold rim for all that elemental resistances is because it gives you 270 plus energy shield. That's just actually crazy. Really, really nice, and it is a ton of energy shield. You're basically just not going to die since you have so much energy shield. For your body armor, we're going to be using a Tabula Rasa at level 1. Now, this is super cool. As of this league, we can now get this mod here, +2 to level of socketed minion gems, so a ton of extra damage. The gloves is kind of open. You can use whatever you want there. I would suggest just getting any gloves that have some nice resistances on them to fill out your resist. For our boots, you can either do the Wanderlust, or you can do like a 7 league step for extra movement speed. I actually prefer the Wanderlust because in the early stages of Summon Raging Spirits, the mana cost is a little hefty, so getting that extra mana regen is actually kind of nice. Moving on to our amulet here, this is the bread and butter of leveling any necromancer right now. This is literally a 1 chaos item. Now, if you get like a higher roll for the minion damage, it could be like a 3 chaos item, really. So it's super cheap either way. I would definitely get the highest minions deal X to X cold damage as you can, because that is what the most damage is coming from for sure. If you guys did not know, they buffed a lot of minion skills this league to have extra added damage effectiveness, and SRS did get that as well. So this is incredibly strong. It also converts 50% of physical damage to cold damage, so it's super strong. Just keep in mind that that last line there, minions deal no non-cold damage, so you can't do stuff like added fire, you can't do stuff like a wrath aura or an anger aura. It has to be cold damage, so just keep that in mind. For your rings, we're going to be using a comb sign, which also got buffed this league. Super cool. Grants level 10 enduring cry, so it's basically like a big boy life flask, which is pretty cool. Ring 2, Piranda's Signet, just for the really strong mana regen. And for our belt here, this is also the second bread and butter here, Darkness Enthroned. And the reason we're going to be doing that is because you can actually equip these jewels here at level 1. So you're going to want to get ones that have added cold damage. You can also get some that have increased attack speed, and you can even get them with life as well, which I did not do. But the main things you want to get is the minions deal additional cold damage. Even just getting that alone, and getting 2 of them as high as you can. I think it is the 6 to 11 is the highest roll that you can get for level 1. Is incredibly strong. What I would suggest, even while you're leveling up, maybe later, like maybe every 20 levels or so, is looking for new ones of these and getting the highest level that you can and getting the highest cold damage that you can as well, and throwing those in your Darkness Enthroned, and it just makes your damage go through the roof. So that is the leveling setup. Let's go over to the skills for the leveling, and it's super basic. And the reason it's super basic is because you are so incredibly strong leveling this up that you like literally don't need anything. Summon a Raging Spirit, we obviously get that at level 4, which is pretty cool. Minion damage, added cold, ruthless, melee splash. You get all of those very early on. I think all before level 8. Elemental damage with attacks, you're going to get that at level 18. And then from there, we're going to start using some auras. The first aura that you're going to actually use is Skitterbots, but we're going to turn that off once we get Hatred. So we're going to use Hatred and Clarity, and that is literally all you need. It is so much damage. You're going to have a blast leveling up. It's actually super fun to level this build up. After that, at level 38, you're going to switch out a little bit, and we're going to throw in Multi-Strike and Unleash in there instead. And we are actually going to gem swap if you want. You don't necessarily have to do that. We're going to gem swap Melee Splash to elemental damage with attacks once we do bosses. But that's kind of personal preference. You honestly don't even have to do that, and you'll be totally fine. And that's literally it. And then just kind of get the other things along the way that you normally would, like a Flame Dash. Convocation is not even needed necessarily unless you're running zombies, but I wouldn't even run zombies, honestly. Like, this is literally all you need is those 2 things and like a Flame Dash. Definitely make sure that you get Flesh Offering and you level up a Bone Offering as well, though. Flesh Offering is super nice early on because it's just going to give them even more attack speed, which is very strong for these guys. So yeah, so that's the leveling experience. It is super quick, super fun, and I guess I think that you guys will actually enjoy it quite a bit. I hate leveling myself, and it was actually pretty enjoyable to level this build just because of how strong you are with the new unique. So pretty fun. Okay, let's go ahead and switch that off to our final skills there and our final main build here. And we'll go back to the tree and let's talk about it a little bit. So the tree itself is pretty basic. If you've been playing minions for any time more than a league or so, this is going to look very similar to you guys because there's just not many choices that you can do with minion builds these days. This is very similar to the Skeleton Mages build that we've been playing a couple leagues. If you guys have played that, you'll be very familiar with this. I think it's just one of the strongest iterations out there because as a necromancer, you are getting Mistress of Sacrifice, which lets you have effect of your offering. So bone offering, you're able to cap out your, or at least close to cap out your block chance here with 70% block, 74% spell block very easily. And I think it's just the best all-around defenses and offenses combo. So that's kind of what we're rocking here. You can see that I do have some block nodes here, there. I get all of the minion nodes essentially. One sad thing is that they did nerf the mana efficiency, reservation efficiency this league. So we're not getting the reservation efficiency mastery. So because of that, we do have to, and I'll explain this a little bit later, anoint Charisma on our amulet in order to fit in the last aura that we use. But I'll talk about that here when we get to the skills themselves. But yeah, other than that, super simple tree. One of the things to note, although, of course, so is that you can see up here, this is a little funky, right? So Summon Raging Spirits cost a ton of mana. So we're actually, at least this is my personal preference, going to go with Eldritch Battery. It literally just solves your mana problems. You can reserve all of your mana, so it lets you effectively get that extra aura and not have to worry about mana. Even doing an Enduring Eternal Mana Flask, it costs so much mana that you literally have to give up an aura in order to have enough mana to cast it. So it's just really not great. So I like Eldritch Battery. It sucks that it costs a few points to get over there, but it literally just makes it feel so comfortable. You're never gonna have to worry about mana again. I think it's the best option after playing it for a while. Let's see down here. We do get Determination, Mana Reservation Efficiency. That again is going to help us with our auras. As far as minion masteries, we are getting this defensive one right here. 8 all elemental resistances, which is pretty nice. We do get quite a bit of elemental resistances on our gear for our minions, so we do cap them out and over cap them with this node, which makes all of our minions pretty tanky. And by that I mean our Spectres and our Animate Guardian, which I will talk about when we talk about the skill gems, but I have never had a Spectre or my Animate Guardian even like take damage. They're perfectly fine with the setup that I have right here, and it feels pretty good. Moving over to our cluster jewel here. This is not a best in slot one, but it is a very good one. It's Renewal and Raise and Pillage. Very nice there. And for our medium cluster, we have Renewal and Blessed Rebirth. One thing that is nice here is that Blessed Rebirth makes them survive for at least 4 seconds without taking any damage after you summon them, and you're spawning them all the time. They're so fast when you spawn them to get to a boss, because you have minion movement speed in this build, that you can just continuously summon them, and they're basically almost always immune to damage, which means that you are getting effect of that renewal pretty much all the time, which comboed with this one and this one, you're getting 10% more damage. So pretty nice here. We also do get this small cluster jewel, which is Rote Reinforcement, which I like quite a bit. It gives you a little bit of life, but mainly it's going to give you 20% chance to gain endurance charge when you block, and 4% chance to block. So you're pretty much going to be capped on endurance charges all the time as well, which is pretty nice. A little bit extra physical damage reduction there. I think that is pretty much it for the skill tree itself. Minions to 30% increased area of effect. That's pretty nice for the minion mastery. Where's the other one here? So minions penetrate 8% of curse elemental resistances. We are using flammability, self-curse in this build, so that is how that works right there in order to trigger that. And here it is. This one's definitely very, very important. Increase effective offerings. That's going to combo with your bone offering in order to get you up to this 70, 74 very easily. So yeah, so that's the tree itself. Let's talk about the ascendancies here. The first one that you're going to want to get is actually Commander of Darkness. I think it's just really nice leveling up, because it's going to give you that extra 30 all elemental resistances, which is pretty nice. The damage is a little bit, it's nothing too crazy leveling up, but it's okay. And then after that, I actually went with Mistress of Sacrifice second, so I could go ahead and start using Bone Offering, and it affected me, and it just made leveling up really smooth. I was very tanky leveling up doing that combo early on, so that felt pretty nice. Third is going to be Mindless Aggression, basically just for a little bit extra damage. And then fourth, we're going to go with Unnatural Strength, which is actually not as much damage as Plaguebringer, but it's more consistent, right? So it's 30% of physical damage, it's extra chaos damage. or you could get just a flat 10% more multiplier and actually 10% reduced damage as well, and 30% increased area effect. All of that is really, really good, but you have to have one nearby corpse. And that's not always going to happen when you're like in a bossing situation. So it's not consistent. I would rather have a little bit less damage and it be consistent. So the last one that I went with is Unnatural Strength. Okay, very good. That is the tree. Nothing too crazy about it. It's pretty similar to everything that you guys have been used to, most likely. Let's go ahead and I guess we can talk about this real quick before we move on. We are sitting at 7.3 million DPS in this version. Like I said earlier, I have spent about 14 divines on this build to get this damage. We are capped at all resistances, and we are also capped at chaos res. We have almost capped block and spell block chance. Still very, very solid. We have about 24k armor. It's not that great, but we do have, I think it's actually, it comes more about, what is it, 444. So what is that? 80% all physical damage reduction once you have your, here, let's actually go to configurations. Do you use endurance charges? There we go. Yeah, so 80% physical damage reduction. Pretty nice. It's nothing too crazy, but it is nice. Our reserve mana doesn't matter because we're using Eldritch Battery. We actually have a decent chunk of life regen as well, which will help out because we are using the Covenant chest piece, which we'll talk about here shortly. Not too much life, only 4,800, but it is more than enough. We actually do have an effective hit pool of 216,000 against an in-game boss, which is very solid. That is definitely very, very good. This is an incredibly tanky build, and I have been farming all of the in-game invitations and not dying. I'm doing them all deathless, so very, very nice. Cool. So let's go ahead and talk about the skills. Our main skill is, of course, Summon Raging Spirit. We are going to be using Summon Raging Spirit, Divergent Multi-Strike, Awaken Fire Pin, Unleash, Awaken Melee Splash, which we will then swap for Ruthless in a bossing situation, and Awaken Minion Damage. Nice thing about Awaken Minion Damage 5, it's actually only 1.5 divines right now, and it is a massive damage boost. So kind of keep that in mind when you're getting your gems here. The most important Awaken gem for sure is Awaken Minion Damage. Pick that up as soon as possible. I would actually just save up and get the Awaken Minion Damage 5 instead of leveling it yourself. That would be my suggestion there. Moving on here, we do have in our weapon 1, which is a Trigger Wand, Desecrate, Life Tap, and Bone Offering. Moving on to our Spectres and our Animate Guardian, we have that with Raise Spectre, Meat Shield, Minion Life, and Animate Guardian, just making them as tanky as possible. For our Spectres, what we're rolling with here, we have 3 Spectres in this build. We're going to be getting an Arena Master, a Pale Seraphim, and an Ash Prophet. The Ash Prophet is going to be casting Flammability for us, which just makes it a little bit more consistent on all of the mobs. You're going to be able to self-cast it yourself, but it's just going to, like I said, it's going to make it a little bit more consistent. So sometimes when you're not casting it, it's still going to get out there and be pretty nice. So that combo, like I said, none of my Spectres ever die. My Animate Guardian has also never died. I guess I can really quick talk about the Animate Guardian. Just do like a little TLDR about his gear. You're going to be using a Doppelganger for the chest piece, which is about 20 to 30 chaos this league, very cheap. That's going to give him 40% damage reduction, as well as 40% physical damage reduction, up to 40% chaos damage reduction, and also regenerates 10% of life when he's hit, which also stacks. So if he gets hit like, 5 times back to back, he's regenerating 50% of his life over a couple seconds. So it's incredibly strong. Doppelganger alone will make your Animated Guardian survive everything. So super nice there. For the helmet, we're going to be using Leercast. It got buffed this league. It is now 50% increased damage for you and your minions. So pretty nice for only a chaos or 2. We're going to be using a Kingmaker, which I think comes out to about 40 chaos, which is basically going to give you culling, fortification, and 50% critical strike multiplier, which really doesn't mean too much for this build here because we are not a crit build, but it is still fantastic and best in slot weapon there. For your gloves, you're going to do any pair of gloves. I would probably suggest doing something with a little bit of chaos resistance, but enfeeble on hit. That is my personal preference, just to get a little bit extra defenses when it's hitting bosses. And in order to use that curse there, you do need a Windscream boots in order to get an extra curse. So that's the Animate Guardian, and like I said, I've been farming tons of really scary invitations, 200% quantity invitations, and I actually haven't even seen my Animate Guardian take damage, let alone die. He's not died. He's been alive for about a week. He's totally fine. That full setup for an Animate Guardian gear set is about 100 to 140 chaos, depending on the market, so really not too bad. Not even a divine, and you can get an in-game Animate Guardian setup very easily. Cool. So moving on to our auras here, we do have Tempest Shield, Determination, and this is in our gloves. Keep in mind that that is a 2-link. Your second 2-link, you do not want to do a 4-link here, is Anger and Awaken Generosity. We don't want that Generosity going on our Determination and us not getting any armor, so just keep that in mind. Oops, let's turn that up to 5 here. There you go. Cool. So that's your auras that you're going to be using. For our other slot here, we do have another support minion. We're going to be using a Summon Stone Golem to get a little bit extra life regen, which is pretty nice. And it's also going to be proccing a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be proccing Feeding Frenzy, Elemental Army, and it's also proccing Combustion. So it's basically just shredding a ton of fire resist from the enemy. So pretty strong combo. You definitely want to make sure your Stone Golem is up all the time. Mine never dies at this point. But again, I have, a full setup here. And it's never dying, so just make sure if you were, kind of leveling this build up, and maybe you have like a 19 Summon Golem or something that you want to, sorry about that, I would say get a level 21 as soon as possible. A level 21 Stone Golem gem is literally like 3 chaos, 4 chaos, so super cheap. Get that early on, and it helps his survivability quite a bit. And he's very important, it gives you a ton of damage. Moving on here, we have a Flame Dash, a Vol Molten Shell, which is really nice for moments where you're taking lots of damage. You can pop Vol Molten Shell, pretty nice. And flammability here is our Self Curse, so you definitely want to get that as well. And we do use Aspect of the Spider as our, what is that? I think it's our 4th aura. But in order to do Aspect of the Spider, that's going to be like the very last thing you get, because you do need a couple things. You need an amulet that has Charisma anointed on it, and you need a helmet that has increased mana reservation efficiency of skills as the implicit there, which you can get from using the currency. I think it's the Eater of the World currency. I'm like 95% sure. I'll put a comment in the description if it's the X-Arc one, but pretty sure that's what it is. So in order to do that, that's how you get Aspect of the Spider. And of course, you just want to put that on one of your items here. Like I think I put it on my boots. I had an extra suffix on my boots, and I put Aspect of Spider there. And it's a pretty decent chunk of extra damage and also survivability as well. 7.4 million. Take it off, and we have 6.4 million. So quite a bit of extra damage, right? Pretty nice. Oh wait, that is all of our skills. Let's go ahead and talk about our items here. Keep in mind, I will be putting trade links for all of these in the description, and I will be going over the trade links here after I talk about this here in a second. But let's talk about the items here. So first and foremost is, of course, our wand. This is actually a super cheap wand. This is about a 50 chaos wand. So I wouldn't necessarily even call this in-game, but the difference between like an in-game wand, I guess I would consider this an in-game wand, and what I would call like a best-in-slot wand is literally like 10 divines. Like it's a crazy jump, and you don't get that much extra DPS. So I would suggest getting something like this. It's +1 level on minion skill gems, and then it's also got some nice minion attack and cast speed, and also some nice damage. These rolls got buffed this league, so it's a little bit easier to get higher minion attack and cast speed. So pretty nice, and of course we absolutely do want to have an open suffix so that we can craft on there trigger socketed spells when you use a skill. Moving on to weapon 2, this is going to be our shield. This is a personal preference here. I am not going with a damage shield. You could get +1 to level of minion gems on here, but I'm not doing that. I actually went with one that I actually self-crafted myself. Super easy to craft it. Literally just get a shaper shield. I went one with with energy shield that also came with a little bit of minion damage. It's the Ivory Spirit Shield, and you can literally craft it yourself using alterations until you get recover % of life when you block. And that's the most important there. You want to try and get some life on there as well, and then maybe some resistances as well. The energy shield helps with your Eldritch Battery, because if you don't know what Eldritch Battery is, it's basically it lets you cast off of your energy shield instead of your mana. So getting a little bit of extra energy shield on your gear does help, because mainly we want to get armor, so 1 or 2 pieces that have some energy shield does go a long way, especially until you get the Covenant. For our helmet, these are actually relatively cheap this league. I would not suggest crafting this yourself unless there's some crafting method out there I don't know of. It's actually incredibly rare to get +2 minion skill gems, even using bound fossils. So I probably wouldn't craft it myself. I would just buy it on the market, and you can do it pretty easily as well. Like, you can get them for 50 chaos, 100 chaos, and you can get pretty decent one. Like, I think I got this one actually for 50 chaos. It just had +2, had some nice life, had some cold res, and yeah, called it a day. 50 chaos, no problem. Had some nice armor as well. And then I crafted that 9% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, which is incredibly important for the build if you want to do Aspect the Spider. Keep that in mind. So our body armor, this is sadly a pretty expensive item, but it's I would say probably one of the only expensive items in this build. So kind of keep that in mind. It's not too bad. I think it's probably like 60 to 70% of the entire budget of the build. The base of this is, I think, what, 5.5 divines, and then you got to 6-link it yourself. I have gotten to the point where I just use the crafting recipe to do the 6-linking through the bench craft. It's 1,500 fusings. I have the worst luck with using fusings on my items. Last league I spent 5,000 to finally get a 6-link, so it feels bad. I don't do that anymore. So I spent the fusings, which came out to about 3 divines worth of fusings. So overall, this cost me about 8.5 divines to get a 6-link of the Covenant. Now, why is this so good? So socketed gems are supported by level 29 added chaos damage. That is bonkers for our build, because Summon Raging Spirits got a ton of effective damage to their skills. So let me take this off and I'll show you how much this changes it, right? So we go from 7.4 million down to 5.8. Tons and tons of extra damage. Before I got a Covenant, this is what I was using. I was using a Skin of the Loyal. So you want red, 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 blue, 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 and it's actually super solid. It gives you really good armor. It actually has more armor than the other one. And you get some decent damage. This is about 1 divine in order to get this Skin of the Loyal. And before that, you want the Tabula Rasa, which is actually a little bit more damage, but you don't get the nice extra armor, right? So that's kind of the purchase order that you want to get there. Tabula first, Skin of the Loyal second. And then once you have enough currency, you do want to go up to the Covenant, because it is so much extra damage with all of that extra chaos damage added on there. It's kind of nice as well. We get a little bit extra life, which is nice. One thing to note here, though, is that skills gain a base life cost equal to 100% of base mana cost. That does not mean you're only using life to cast this. You actually cast it with both life and mana, which is why we're going with Eldritch Battery. And it's also why it's important to use the Stone Golem to get a little bit of life regen to help offset that. So pretty important to notice that. And it's an incredibly strong item, but it's also a lot of people wanting to use this, so it's kind of expensive. So kind of just keep that in mind. For our gloves here, these are pretty basic pair of gloves, just some life and resistances. This is a good one where you can get some dexterity on it. If you can, try and have an open prefix. I crafted minion damage on there, and then I also got minion damage as an implicit as well. For our boots here, I typically like to get chaos res on my boots because it's a little bit easier to get chaos res on boots. So a little bit of life, chaos res, and movement speed, and the other important thing here is drops brittle ground while moving, lasting 4 seconds. So that's pretty nice. You want to definitely craft that on your boots so that you can proc brittle ground yourself instead of relying like on an Animate Guardian. I personally don't like that. Plus, we use the windscreen boots on our Animate Guardian anyway, so you can't do that. So what brittle ground does is it was actually nerfed this league. It gives your minions +2 base critical strike chance. Like I said, we are not a critical strike chance build, so it's not a whole lot of damage, but it is a little bit of damage, so there's no reason not to do it. And like I said, I had an extra suffix here, so that is where I put my Aspect of the Spider. For our amulet, this is actually a relatively basic amulet. This is nothing too crazy. We can actually get up to +4 level of gems now, so you can get +2 level of skill gems and +2 level of fire gems using the Calandra mirror reflection stuff, but that's like super best in slot, probably extremely expensive. Until then, I just bought this for about a divine. Gives you some nice damage, got a little bit of resistance on there as well, and some life. And like I said earlier, we are going to want to craft on there, allocates charisma as the anoint. For our ring, our rings are pretty much kind of just stat sticks. So like this one, for example, is crazy. 31% increased attack and cast speed. And I also have some pretty decent all-res on there for our minions as well. Now it's important too, if you can, get it on a gloam ring. These are new rings added this league that you get through the Mirrors of Reflection. If you use it in the left ring slot, minions take 15% reduced damage. So that's really nice for defenses for all of your minions. So your Spectres and your Animate Guardian. Moving on to our ring 2 here. This one is another stat stick, so I actually got as much movement speed as I could for them because I want to cast them and then immediately get to a boss as soon as possible. And I also got a little bit of elemental resistance as well, but you could get some more attack and cast speed for your minions. You could get some minion damage there as well. And I just got some life, and I threw on some energy shield because it just kind of helped out since, like I said, I'm Eldritch Battery. Pretty easy rings. These are not expensive at all. You can probably get some very solid ones between 50 and 100 chaos and be super happy with them. For our belt, again, very basic, just life and resistances. Try and get some chaos res on here as well. I like to do that. And you can cap out your chaos res if you get it mainly on your like boots and your belt pretty easily, as well as getting a flask here, which is the same as this flask. Now, for our ghastly jewels are actually pretty important in this build. Like I said earlier, the more minion steal blank to blank added fire damage you have in your build, the better your build is going to be, because they scale really well with summon raging spirits. So you're going to want to get as much minion steal additional fire damage as possible. This is not the best example of one that you want. Let me find one where I have a really good one. This one is a very good one, right? So we have lots of fire damage, and we actually have I think it's a tier 3 or tier 2 lightning damage roll as well. We also have 20% increased minion damage as well on that, and also minions have a chance to taunt on hit with attacks. So pretty much everything is taunted as well because they're attacking so fast. So pretty nice. This is one of the better jewels that you want to be looking for right there. Moving up here to our our cluster jewels. Where are you? I think we already talked about our cluster jewels, but just really quick to recap them. Medium cluster jewel, we want Blessed Rebirth and Renewal. And for our large here, we want Raise and Pillage and Renewal. And then we already talked about all of the ghastly jewels here, so let's talk about our flasks here. We have a Divine Life Flask, and I usually put Bleeding on here just to help out since I am not getting Bone Barrier. So we do need this on one of our flasks, unless you want to get one on one of your jewels, but I don't think that's probably going to happen because it's important to get some really nice ghastly jewels, so you're probably not going to get Corrupting Blood on one of your jewels. So let's go ahead and get it on your life flask here. For our second flask, we do have an Amethyst Flask. That is going to help cap us on our chaos res. I do like to put Immunity Corrupting Blood on there as well, and the enchant is actually going to be used when charges are full for that. For Flask 3, we're going to have a Quicksilver Flask with a little bit of move speed. That's personal preference on what you put in there. You could really do anything. Ruby's Concoction is very solid as well, used when charges are full as your enchant. I could actually get a better one here, but they're a little bit more expensive. They're actually not too bad. They're probably like 20-30 chaos. I just haven't done it yet. But that actually might cap me out. No, it won't cap me out, but I'll get pretty close. I'll be like 73, 75. So very close if I get a better Ruby's Concoction. And for our last one here, we do have a Basalt Flask to round out our armor here with increased armor as well. And we're also going to use when charge is full as our enchant. Very good. So that is all of our gear. Let's go ahead and look at our config file just to kind of show you guys what's going on over here and how we got to the damage and to the defenses that we have in this build. Do you have endurance charges? Yes, we get that from our small cluster jewel. Our minions on full life, we're getting that from our renewal. Moving down here, this actually does not matter, so we're going to take that off. Exposure type is fire. That is coming from our stone golem. Shredding fire resists. Spider webs, we do have 3 from our aspect of the spider. Feeding frenzy is coming from our stone golem as well. Moving on here, it is of course a guardian pinnacle boss. I think that's probably pretty much it. Is the enemy exposed to fire? Yes, like I said, that is coming from the stone golem. Here are some of the stats that are coming from our anime guardian. Pretty simple. Your enemies have fortification, you have fortify. Minions deal 50% increased damage. That's that Leer cast. And 50% critical strike multiplier. That is the Kingmaker. And also it does have Coaling Strike, which I did not include on there. The Brittle Boots minion have 2% increased critical strike chance, and that's it. So no shenanigans going on there. This is all very legit, the damage and the defenses. And overall, it's a fantastic build. Let's go ahead and move on from here. Let's talk about the trade links. So I have 2 types of trade links that you guys can use here. I have the Better POE Trading app extension that you can get for Google Chrome. You can get it for what I have here is Opera GX. I like that better than Chrome. I think you can get it on Firefox as well, but I don't think that the app has been updated in a while. This is fantastic. If you guys don't have this, I would absolutely suggest getting it. I will have a link in the description of this video for both getting Better POE Trading app extension and also the links to actually use it. So what this does is it's embedded directly in your trade website, and you can literally just click on any of these that I have put here, and it takes you right to the trade link that you want for it. I've also put these in order of importance of how you want to purchase them. It's basically kind of like a purchasing order of what you want to get. So this is for the in-game version of the build, all of the in-game items. I'm also going to give you guys the Minion Twink leveling gear as well. So you'll have 2 of those. Now, how to actually use this, you're going to want to go to the very bottom of your Better POE Trading app extension, and you're going to want to click Import Folder right here, and you're going to put the code in right there. Now, keep in mind, when you go to the link in the video description, it's going to be a pastebin. You're not going to put the actual pastebin link in here. You actually want to go to the pastebin link, and then copy all of that text in that link, and then put that there, and you're going to save it. And it's going to look like this right here. You just click it, and it goes right there. If you guys are looking at this in a future league, do remember that all you have to do is click up here and click it wherever you want. So, like, for example, if you guys are in Hardcore League, you could just click this, Hardcore, and you can click on any of these, and it takes you to the Hardcore link. So we're going to go to Calandra, search, and there you go. That's how you get to that. So that's the Better POE Trading link for all of the trade links. And then here is the second option. This is just a Google Doc that I have that has all of my current builds for this league. So you guys can use that as well if you don't want to use that app extension. It's the same stuff. It takes you to all of the same places. Most of the gear that you're going to be looking for this in-game build is the ones in the middle, these purple ones. This is kind of like a build purchasing path as well. Like, here's your cheap items, your medium ones, and then your super expensive ones. But yeah, it's got everything that you need. It's got a couple extra things as well. For example, it's telling you that I spent about 15 divines on this build. The low budget one, I'll put the POB on here, I haven't yet, is about 1 divine. The bandits, we are going to kill all of them. The bad map mods, no regen, and elemental reflect. Our major pantheon is going to be Brine King and cannot be frozen. The minor pantheon is going to be Aberath and unaffected by burning ground. Our amulet anoint is charisma. And then once again, here is the trading link for the Better POE app. And I think that about covers it for the trade links. And that's it, guys. That's everything you need to know to get up and running with a Summon Raging Spirits build. This build has honestly been a blast to play, and after a few other minion builds kind of let me down this league, this build got me back blasting maps and bosses and having a good old time. It's a very similar playstyle to the old Skeleton Mages from previous leagues, where you can kind of cast your minions, then you have a little bit of a window where you can kind of just run around and dodge things. It makes for a very easy and smooth playstyle that I love, and I hope you guys love too. If you end up trying this build out, let me know in the comment section how it goes for you. And remember, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. That's all I got on this one, guys. I will catch y'all on the next one.